You know, ladies, as Al's best friend, I'd like to talk to you about him for a minute if I could. The beard, pretty cheesy looking, isn't it?
From a star who faced life in prison to FBI warnings about pedophiles targeting child actors, the beloved 90s family sitcom Home Improvement hid some jaw-dropping secrets behind its tool-belted charm. Brothers who weren't actually the right age, a first lady who desperately wanted to guest star, and a neighbor's face that stayed hidden for nearly a decade. This show was far stranger than anyone realized. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Home Improvement. Fact 1. Tim Allen's dark pre-fame past. Before Tim Allen became one of the most beloved television dads in America, grunting his way through tool-related mishaps on Home Improvement, he was serving hard time in federal prison for drug trafficking. In October of 1978, Allen was arrested at the Kalamazoo-Battle Creek International Airport in Michigan after police found him carrying over 1 pound of cocaine, specifically 1.4 pounds of the drug. This wasn't a small-time offense or a personal use situation. Allen was facing serious federal charges that carried a potential life sentence behind bars.
From a upper middle class family, so I was just, the police were really after, they wanted to make an example of me. So I went through a court system that my mother watched, God bless her, and that she's totally lost faith in the U.S. legal system.
The 25-year-old aspiring comedian was looking at spending the rest of his life in prison, which would have meant the world would never know Tim, the Toolman Taylor, and the landscape of 1990s television would have looked completely different. But Allen made a decision that would change everything. To avoid that life sentence, he cooperated fully with federal authorities and provided names of other dealers involved in the drug trafficking operation. This cooperation led to a significantly reduced sentence. Allen ended up serving 2 years and 4 months in federal prison at the Sandstone Federal Correctional Institution in Minnesota. After his release, he turned his life around completely, pursuing stand-up comedy with a newfound determination. His prison experience actually became part of his comedy material, and he eventually caught the attention of Disney executives who saw potential in his everyman, all-American persona. They had no idea that just over a decade earlier, their future star had been behind bars facing a potential life sentence for cocaine trafficking. Fact 2. The wrong brother was oldest. One of the strangest casting quirks in Home Improvement involved the Taylor brothers and their actual ages compared to their on-screen birth order. Jonathan Taylor Thomas played Randy Taylor, the middle child of the 3 boys, while Zachary Ty Bryan played Brad Taylor, the oldest son who was supposed to be a full year older than Randy. But in real life, the age dynamic was completely backward. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was actually born on September 11, 1981, while Zachary Ty Bryan was born on October 9, 1981, making Jonathan Taylor Thomas roughly 1 month older than the actor playing his older brother. This meant that throughout the entire 8-season run of the show, whenever Brad was teasing Randy about being younger or pulling the big brother card, the actor delivering those lines was actually the younger of the two in real life. The casting directors clearly prioritized acting ability and on-screen chemistry over matching the actors' real ages to their character ages, which was a smart decision given how well the 3 boys worked together throughout the series. Taron Noah Smith, who played youngest brother Mark, was genuinely the youngest of the 3 actors, born in April of 1984, so at least that part of the birth order was correct. The reversed ages between the 2 older brothers never affected the show's dynamics or the believability of their relationship, and most viewers had no idea that the middle child actor was technically old enough to be playing the oldest brother instead. Fact 3. Tool time. Almost had MC Hammer's name. The show within the show that became central to Home Improvement's premise almost had a very different and much more confusing name. Tool Time, the fictional home improvement program that Tim Taylor hosted alongside his assistant Al Borland, was originally going to be called Hammer Time as a straightforward tribute to Bob Villa and his work on This Old House. The name made perfect sense, given that the show featured tools and home improvement projects, and hammers are one of the most iconic tools in construction and renovation work. But there was one massive problem that the creators hadn't fully considered when they first came up with the name. Just a year before Home Improvement premiered, rap superstar MC Hammer had released his biggest hit single, "You Can't Touch This," which featured the now iconic catchphrase, "Hammer Time," shouted repeatedly throughout the song. The song had become a cultural phenomenon, dominating radio stations and music television throughout 1990. Everyone in America knew the phrase, "Hammer Time," and it was completely associated with MC Hammer's music, rather than anything related to home improvement or construction. The producers quickly realized that naming their fictional show Hammer Time would create endless confusion and would make their sitcom seem like it was trying to capitalize on or parody the rapper's success. They also worried that audiences would spend the entire series waiting for MC Hammer references that were never coming. So they changed the name to Tool Time, which was broader, more flexible, and didn't come with any pop culture baggage attached to it. Fact 4, FBI warned about pedophile threats. One of the darkest behind-the-scenes realities of home improvement involved a chilling warning that came during the show's first season. According to Candy Bennettsy, the mother of Taryn Noah Smith, who played youngest son Mark Taylor, an FBI agent approached her with deeply disturbing information about the dangers her son and his young co-stars were facing. The agent told her that the 3 child actors on Home Improvement had become the top targets of pedophiles in the world due to their massive popularity and constant presence on television screens across America every week. The warning was specific and serious. The FBI agent advised her to never leave her son alone in public places and to maintain constant vigilance about who had access to him. This wasn't just general celebrity safety advice or concerns about overeager fans. This was a direct warning about organized predators who were specifically targeting these children because of their fame and visibility. The success of Home Improvement meant that Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Zachary Ty Bryan, and Taryn Noah Smith were among the most recognizable child actors in the country during the 1990s, appearing in millions of homes every Tuesday night. That level of exposure, combined with the family-friendly nature of the show and their characters' boy-next-door images, apparently made them particularly attractive targets for dangerous individuals. The parents of all 3 boys had to navigate the bizarre reality of their children achieving massive success and fame, while simultaneously becoming the focus of some of the most dangerous people in society. This dark undercurrent ran throughout the show's entire run, even as audiences saw only the wholesome family comedy on their screens. Fact 5. Ashley Judd was too good for Lisa. Before Pamela Anderson became the most famous tool-time girl on Home Improvement, the show's creator Matt Williams had a surprising encounter during the casting process that revealed just how much talent was interested in the role. Ashley Judd, who would go on to become a major Hollywood star with films like Kiss the Girls and Double Jeopardy, auditioned for the part of Lisa, the original tool-time girl who appeared in the show's first 2 seasons. But Williams made an unusual decision that most casting directors would never make. He actually rejected Judd for the role specifically because she was too talented and too good of an actress for what was essentially a background character who stood around looking pretty while Tim Taylor showed off power tools. Williams could see that Judd had serious dramatic acting abilities that would be completely wasted on a role that required her to smile, hand Tim tools, and deliver maybe 1 or 2 lines per episode. He didn't want to cast her in something so far beneath her skill level, but Williams was so impressed with Judd's audition that he didn't want to lose her entirely. He went back to the drawing board and tried to create a completely new role specifically for her, offering her the part of Tim Taylor's sister, which would have been a recurring character with actual storylines and dramatic material to work with. This would have given Judd a platform to showcase her abilities while still being part of the Home Improvement universe. But Judd ultimately declined the offer. She had bigger ambitions and knew that even a better television role would potentially limit her film career opportunities, so she walked away from home improvement entirely to pursue movies instead. Fact 6. Wilson's face was based on Alan's childhood.
Wilson!
Hi-ho, neighbor.
Hey, Wilson, do you have any of those humane traps for mice?
Since when did you become a trapper, Tim?
The most iconic running gag in home improvement history, where neighbor Wilson's face was always partially hidden behind a fence or some other object, wasn't just a random creative decision made by writers sitting around a table. The entire concept came directly from Tim Allen's real childhood experiences growing up in Michigan. Allen has explained in interviews that when he was a young boy, he was too short to see over his backyard fence when talking to his neighbor on the other side. Every conversation he had with this neighbor involved him staring up at just the top of their head and maybe their eyes, while the rest of their face remained a complete mystery hidden behind the wooden fence boards. This created a strange and slightly surreal dynamic where Allen formed a relationship with someone whose full face he never actually saw during their backyard conversations. When Allen and the creative team were developing Home Improvement, he remembered this odd childhood experience and thought it would make for a unique and memorable character trait. They decided to make it Wilson's defining characteristic, ensuring that no matter what scene he appeared in, something would always be blocking the lower half of his face. Sometimes it was the famous fence between their yards, but as the show progressed, the writers got increasingly creative with the obstruction, using everything from a giant plant to a steering wheel to various props and set pieces. Earl Hindman, who played Wilson, fully embraced the gag and helped make it one of the most memorable aspects of the entire series, all because Tim Allen couldn't see over a fence when he was a kid. Fact 7. Tim's grunt damaged his throat. Tim Allen's signature man grunt, that guttural noise he made whenever he was excited about power tools or feeling particularly masculine on Home Improvement, became one of the most recognizable sound effects in 1990s television.
Well, I believe, if you recall, the last thing you said to me in bed last night was, "No!"
Fans could instantly identify the show just from hearing that distinctive grunt, and it became so associated with Allen's persona that people expected him to make the sound at public appearances and interviews. But what audiences didn't realize was that creating that grunt was actually physically damaging to Tim Allen's throat and vocal cords. The sound required him to force air through his throat in an unnatural way that put significant strain on the delicate tissues involved in speech and sound production. As the seasons progressed and Allen had been making the grunt for years across hundreds of episodes, the cumulative damage became too painful to ignore. He started experiencing discomfort and pain in his throat that lingered even after filming wrapped for the day. Medical professionals likely warned him about the long-term damage he could cause if he continued putting that kind of strain on his vocal cords on a regular basis. So Allen gradually reduced how often he made the grunt sound as the show moved into its later seasons. If you watch early episodes compared to episodes from season 7 or 8, you'll notice that the frequency of the grunt drops significantly.
Hey, didn't you sign up for elective today?
Yeah, let's go, Randy.
No, wait a minute. I'm real proud of you.
Allen still made the sound occasionally because it was such an iconic part of his character and fans expected it, but he was much more selective about when and how often he used it to protect his voice and throat from further damage that could have affected his entire career. Fact 8. A bizarre video game adventure. In 1994, at the height of Home Improvement's popularity, Absolute Entertainment released one of the strangest video game adaptations of a television show ever created. Home Improvement: Power Tool Pursuit came out for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and its plot was absolutely bizarre, even by the standards of video games from that era. Players controlled Tim Taylor as he ran through various television sound stages, fighting actors dressed in ridiculous costumes, including dinosaurs and mummies, all while trying to recover his stolen power tools. The game presented itself as a madcap adventure through the world of television production, where apparently costumed performers just randomly attack people trying to retrieve their missing tools. The levels featured different TV set environments, and Tim had to defeat these costumed enemies using various weapons and power-ups while navigating platform-style obstacles. But here's where the plot gets even weirder. After fighting through all these sound stages and defeating all these actors in dinosaur and mummy costumes, players finally reach the end of the game, only to discover that Tim's own children, Brad, Randy, and Mark, were the ones who stole and hid the power tools the entire time. The game essentially had you spend hours fighting through bizarre scenarios, only to reveal that it was all an elaborate prank by the Taylor boys. The game received mediocre reviews and is mostly remembered today as a strange curiosity from the era when every popular television show was getting video game adaptations, regardless of whether the show's premise made any sense as a game. Fact 9. Hillary Clinton's failed sitcom cameo. In 1995, while Home Improvement was one of the top-rated shows on television, First Lady Hillary Clinton's staff made a surprising and somewhat desperate attempt to get her a guest appearance on the sitcom. This wasn't just casual interest or a fun opportunity that came up naturally. According to reports from people involved in the discussions, Clinton's staff was actively pursuing sitcom appearances as part of a deliberate strategy to make the First Lady seem more likable and relatable to the American public. She was facing criticism for being too serious, too political, and too involved in policy matters like healthcare reform. And her advisors thought appearing on a popular family sitcom would soften her image. They approached Home Improvement specifically because of its massive audience and wholesome family appeal. The show's producers actually engaged seriously with the idea and offered to build an entire episode around women's issues, creating a storyline that would give Clinton substantial screen time and allow her to discuss topics she cared about while still fitting into the sitcom format. This would have been similar to other political figures making cameo appearances on sitcoms during that era, but with more substance and focus on policy discussions woven into the comedy. But despite these discussions and the producer's willingness to accommodate her, the guest appearance never materialized. The reasons for it falling apart were never fully explained publicly, but it likely involved concerns about appearing too political or the White House deciding that a sitcom appearance might seem frivolous or undignified for a First Lady who was trying to be taken seriously as a policy advisor. Fact 10. The pilot had a different Jill. When Home Improvement filmed its original pilot episode, the entire Taylor family dynamic looked and felt completely different because Jill Taylor was played by a different actress. Frances Fisher, who would later appear in films like Titanic and Unforgiven, was originally cast as Tim's wife in the pilot episode. She filmed the entire pilot alongside Tim Allen, and the network executives and producers watched the completed episode to see how everything worked together. But something was fundamentally wrong with the chemistry between Fisher and Allen. Test audiences who watched the pilot consistently reported that the two actors didn't feel like a believable married couple, and their interactions lacked the warmth and natural connection that a successful sitcom couple needed to carry a show for multiple seasons. The producers and network knew they had a potential hit on their hands with the Toolman concept and Tim Allen's performance, but they also knew that the husband-wife relationship was absolutely central to making the show work. Without believable chemistry between Tim and Jill, the entire family dynamic would fall apart, and audiences wouldn't invest in the characters or their relationships. So they made the difficult decision to recast the role of Jill Taylor, which meant reshooting the entire pilot with a new actress. Patricia Richardson, who had previously appeared in shows like Double Trouble and had experience in both comedy and drama, was brought in to replace Fisher just 4 days before they needed to begin filming the new version of the pilot, giving her almost no time to prepare for the role that would define her career. Fact 11. Tim Allen's historic Triple Crown Week. For one incredible week in November of 1994, Tim Allen achieved something that no other entertainer had ever accomplished before or has accomplished since in the history of American entertainment. During that single week, Allen simultaneously held the #1 position in 3 completely different entertainment categories all at the same time. Home Improvement was the #1 rated television show in America, pulling in the highest viewership numbers of any program on network television. The Santa Claus, his first major starring role in a feature film, was the #1 movie at the box office, bringing in more ticket sales than any other film in theaters that week. And his book, Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man, was sitting at the #1 position on the bestseller lists, outselling every other book in the country. This unprecedented triple crown of entertainment dominance meant that whether Americans were watching television, going to the movies, or browsing bookstores, they were likely encountering Tim Allen's work. It represented an absolutely peak moment of cultural saturation and popularity that very few entertainers ever reach, let alone maintain simultaneously across 3 different mediums. Allen went from federal prison inmate to arguably the most popular and successful entertainer in America in less than 20 years. The achievement was so remarkable that it's still mentioned in entertainment journalism today as an example of the highest possible level of mainstream success. No other performer has managed to replicate this Triple Crown success, making it a unique moment in entertainment history that speaks to just how massive Tim Allen's popularity was during the mid-1990s. Fact 12. Richard Karn got the role through traffic school. Richard Karn's journey to becoming Al Borland, Tim Taylor's patient and long-suffering Tool-Time co-host, began in one of the most unlikely places imaginable: traffic school. Karn, who was a struggling actor at the time, got pulled over and received a moving violation that required him to attend traffic school to avoid points on his driving record and keep his insurance rates from skyrocketing. He showed up to the mandatory traffic school class expecting a boring day of watching videos about safe driving and listening to lectures about following traffic laws. But sometimes the most random encounters change everything. During that traffic school session, Karn happened to strike up a conversation with another person in the class who worked as an agent in the entertainment industry. They started talking about what they did for work, and when the agent learned that Karn was an actor looking for opportunities, they mentioned that they had just heard about a new sitcom that was holding auditions. The show was called Home Improvement, and they were looking for someone to play the co-host of a home improvement television program. The agent gave Karn the information about the casting call and encouraged him to audition. If Karn hadn't gotten that traffic ticket, if he hadn't been required to attend that specific traffic school session, if he hadn't happened to sit near and talk to that particular agent, he never would have heard about the audition and never would have landed the role that defined his career and made him a household name throughout the 1990s. Fact 13. Binford Tools appeared in Toy Story. The fictional Binford Tools Company from Home Improvement made a surprising cameo appearance in Pixar's groundbreaking animated film Toy Story, creating a subtle but meaningful connection between the two projects. During the scene where Woody is trying to help Buzz Lightyear escape from Sid's house, there's a toolbox visible in the background that bears the Binford Tools logo, the same fictional tool company that sponsored Tool Time on Tim Allen's sitcom. This wasn't an accident or a coincidence. It was a deliberate Easter egg inserted by the Pixar animators as a tribute to Tim Allen, who voiced the character of Buzz Lightyear in the film. The Pixar team wanted to include a hidden reference that connected Allen's 2 biggest projects from that era, giving fans of both Home Improvement and Toy Story a fun detail to discover and appreciate. The Binford Tools reference worked perfectly because both projects featured tools and building as central elements, making the crossover feel natural rather than forced. For Home Improvement fans watching Toy Story, spotting the Binford logo created a moment of recognition and connection, while viewers who didn't know the reference simply saw it as generic toolbox branding and moved on without it disrupting the story. This kind of cross-project Easter egg has become much more common in modern entertainment. But in 1995, when Toy Story was released, it was a relatively novel idea that delighted fans who caught the reference and sparked conversations about the connection between the two Tim Allen projects. Fact 14. Patricia Richardson had newborn twins. When Patricia Richardson was cast as Jill Taylor to replace Frances Fisher in the Home Improvement pilot, she was dealing with a major personal situation that could have derailed her casting entirely. Richardson had given birth to twins just 3 months before filming was scheduled to begin on the series. She was still in the early stages of recovering from the pregnancy and delivery, dealing with the physical changes that come with carrying and delivering twins and adjusting to life as the mother of newborn babies who required constant care and attention. Most actresses in that situation would have been forced to turn down a demanding role on a network sitcom that required long hours on set every week for months at a time. But the producers of Home Improvement wanted Richardson specifically for the role after seeing how well her chemistry with Tim Allen worked compared to the original pilot. So they went out of their way to make it possible for her to take the job despite her circumstances. They built an on-set nursery where Richardson could keep her newborn twins close by during filming so she could care for them between takes and during breaks. This allowed her to continue nursing and bonding with her babies while still fulfilling her responsibilities as the female lead of a network television show. The costume and wardrobe departments also worked carefully to dress Richardson in baggy, loose-fitting clothing that would help conceal her post-pregnancy figure, while her body was still recovering and returning to her pre-pregnancy shape. The accommodations made by the production team allowed Richardson to take on the role that would become her most famous work, while still being present as a mother during those crucial early months of her twins' lives. Fact 15. Wilson kept his face. Hidden even at curtain calls. Earl Hindman's commitment to the Wilson character and the running gag of never showing his full face extended far beyond what was required by the script or his contract. During every single episode's curtain call, when the cast would come out to take their bows and wave to the live studio audience that had watched the taping, Hindman would carry a miniature picket fence with him. This small prop fence was just large enough to hold in front of his face, so that even as he stood alongside the rest of the cast, acknowledging the audience's applause, the lower portion of his face remained hidden behind the white picket fence boards. The studio audience would laugh and cheer at this dedication to maintaining the character's mystery, even during what was essentially a behind-the-scenes moment when the actors were appearing as themselves rather than their characters. For 8 full seasons, spanning from 1991 to 1999, Hindman maintained this tradition at every single episode, taping, never breaking character, even for the curtain call. The only time Earl Hindman ever revealed his full face to the studio audience and to television viewers was during the series finale episode. In a moment that fans had been waiting for across nearly a decade of episodes, Wilson finally stepped out from behind the fence and showed his complete face for the first time. It was a special moment that marked the end of the series and gave audiences the payoff they had been waiting for throughout the show's entire run, making Hindman's commitment to the gag throughout all those years even more meaningful and memorable.